And we're live.
Come on. There we go.
I gotta order me some more B-Res coffee for the holidays.
Yeah, I need to do the same. Yeah, it's gonna be a crazy couple of weeks.
Didn't they just come up with a new flavor? Let me go to the website.
Yeah, they announced it a couple of days ago. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head though.
Oh, it's like site can't be reached. What happened? All right, let's see. Specialty. Um, I don't know. Well, we got fireside s'mores. That sounds pretty good.
I was never a s'mores guy. I can't do marshmallows.
Yeah, sweet sparkling sunrise.
That sounds more my speed.
Shield mode shortcut. All right.
Let's call it SMS.
Man, they got a lot of flavors now that I haven't seen seen yet.
They
Nuclear
they've added a
jelly.
lot since they started.
What is nuclear jelly? That looks cool.
Sounds dangerous.
All right. Well, I've got all my tabs up and I got everything open.
I've got the same. So
right.
whenever you're ready, I'm good to go.
All right, here we go in 3, 2, 1. Greetings, programs, and welcome to the Nerd Cave Retro Show. My name is Jason Robbins.
And my name is Derek Diamond.
So how has your week been?
It's been pretty busy. Work's kind of winding down for the year, so the next week or two is going to be pretty busy before we hit Christmas, which is now in just a few weeks. I have had a chance to play a couple of games, one which I'm going to be reviewing a little bit later on in the show. I meant to mention this last week, but I guess I just completely forgot about it. But I beat Sonic Frontiers.
Oh, nice. How was it?
I actually liked it. It was very different, as they've been advertising. It's very different than any Sonic game I've ever played. It's literally like, and I don't want to go too in depth into spoilers, but it's really like they gave it the Breath of the Wild treatment.
That's cool.
Because you have this open world with more of like an ambient music kind of soundtrack. It does have some cool rock songs in it, but I like the direction that they went with it. I thought the storyline was great. I think it added a nice breath of fresh air. The game has a couple of bugs, which are really noticeable, especially towards the end of the game. But that's stuff that's fixable in future installments. So overall, I actually liked it quite a bit. It might deter some old school Sonic fans because when you think of Sonic the Hedgehog, you think of these fast-paced games that it goes by so fast that you don't know what's coming or really what's happening in that moment. So this is a little more methodical, but in a good way.
Yeah, that's cool. I've been playing a lot of Splatoon 3 over the last week.
That's next on my list.
And it took me a little while to get used to the control scheme, because it doesn't play like your normal shooter. You actually, I've been playing it in handheld mode a lot, so you move the screen like to actually you move using the analog sticks, but you actually shift the switch around to actually aim. And it took me a while to get used to it. I tried to turn it off, and when I did, I could not play anymore. So I was like, I need to just get used to it. So that's what I've been doing, is playing a lot of that. And that's really all I've been playing is just that. Splatoon 3. I've been playing a little bit of Gems of War, which is a free game on the Switch. And if you like Puzzle Quest, then Gems of War is right up your alley.
Okay. Yeah, Splatoon 3 is next on my list. I hope to start that, sometime this week. 'Cause I've really been looking forward to it. So I really like the original Splatoon.
Mhm.
So I'm excited to dive into this one.
Well, when you do, we'll get some game nights together and play with the
Yeah,
community.
yeah, for sure.
But
Yeah, I didn't really get to play with anybody that I know personally with the first one because I felt like I was one of 5 people who owned a Wii U. So didn't didn't but the online play was pretty fun. So
well, maybe we can talk some of the people in our friend and follower group who hate the Nintendo Switch, but yet still have one. Maybe we can talk them into purchasing Splatoon 3 to play with us.
maybe we shouldn't call it Nintendo Switch Appreciation Night.
Yeah,
That might deter people.
but we got a lot of news to get to. Are you ready to jump into the news?
Let's do it.
And Joey's in the chat room and he says, "Geez, dude, just say my name." Well, I actually meant you, Wally, Rampage, everyone who has a Switch but hates it.
We don't want to openly throw people under the bus.
Yeah, we don't do that here. We don't throw people like Wally under the bus for anything.
We're professional on this show.
But today's stories were submitted to us by Armez Jackson. If you have a story you'd like us to cover, send them to nerdcaveretro@gmail.com. And the first one up here is from NintendoEverything.com. Vengeful Guardian Moonrider, release date set for January. Publisher The Arcade Crew and developer Joy Master today set a final release date for Vengeful Guardian Moonrider. The game will be appearing on the Switch starting January 12th, 2023. Alongside the release date news, a gameplay trailer has come in. The video highlights the lethal talents of a cyborg ninja named Moonrider, a state-of-the-art warrior who turned on its creators while defying its original purpose in a relentless quest for revenge. I mean, what else can you ask for out of a video game?
This thing looks like it's right out of the Sega Genesis,
Yeah.
Super Nintendo era, and I'm here for it.
I think
It looks scarily like a Super Nintendo and Genesis game.
I think I'm gonna have to go ahead and get this when it comes out.
I want to play it too. It's got some like, if you go and watch the trailer, it has kind of like Super Metroid and a little bit of F-Zero kind of feel to it as well. So it looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to just go ahead and get this as soon as it drops. But it drops on what I say, January 12th, 2023. So that's only like a month from now. I don't think they gave a price though. They did not. I can't imagine this is more than maybe 10, 12 bucks.
Yeah, good question. It's tough to tell, I feel like, with these games. Like, you'd think they would be like 10 and they end up being closer to 20.
Yeah. Either way,
we'll see.
It looks good enough to drop at least 20 bucks on it.
I'll be looking for something to play after the new year, so I think this might be it.
Oh yeah.
Let's see. From our favorite site, NintendoLife.com, Sega has considered Dreamcast and Saturn Mini, but is worried about extreme cost. So we know about the Mega Drive Mini 2 that came out like a month or two ago. But fan requests have been coming in for miniature versions of Sega's other consoles like the Saturn and the Dreamcast. During an interview with Famitsu, Sega's classic hardware producer Yosuke Okanari explained how the pandemic shaped the outcome. He's sure people will be like, what about Saturn/Dreamcast Mini? And it's not like they didn't explore the idea. The Mega Drive Mini's internals can't adequately handle Saturn games, and both developing and manufacturing new chipsets during the pandemic is a difficult and expensive process. So even if they'd forge ahead with the Saturn Mini anyway, it might have been extremely expensive. He jokes that he might like to release a Mini that costs as much as an authentic modern console. That would not go over very well at all, so I don't advise that whatsoever. I haven't picked up a Mega Drive Mini 2, but I don't know exactly what the cost would be, and I understand if that's the reason why they wouldn't pursue that, but I think a Dreamcast would sell pretty well personally.
Yeah, but I can't imagine the chipset is could be that expensive for something that runs on 25-year-old technology at this point.
Yeah, it'd be curious because I mean, I obviously like I don't think Nintendo's going to make like a GameCube Mini or anything like that, but I, I don't know if they would do a Mega Drive Mini 3. Who knows, but I still would like to see a mini Dreamcast. I think it would be really cool, and that console has a good cult following, so I think it would sell well.
Yeah, I just don't. I hope that the mini console thing hasn't come to an end.
Well, yeah, because like even though we ripped Nintendo for the fiasco of the NES Classic, still playing it and then getting the Super Nintendo Classic was really cool. I'd love if a GameCube Mini came out, if a Dreamcast Mini came out. There's just something about because it's almost like you're playing the old system itself
Mm-hmm.
because you have the physical hardware in front of you. You have the same kind of controller in your hand.
Yeah, I just think they're gonna have to do something to allow people to some way for people to play these games. There just has to be.
And if they do another mini, what they should have done was created the NES mini, but put a hard drive on it
Mm.
where you can download additional games. Same thing with the Super Nintendo.
That
But
would be
we
the
we've
smart
we've
thing to
discussed
do.
that. We've discussed that ad nauseum.
Yeah, we're not gonna bash Nintendo tonight for too much, but that's one thing that they could have done so much more with those mini consoles.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even Sega. I mean, why not make you take these mini consoles, put them out, but make them able to be, like you said, have a hard drive on them, and have them be able to hook up to the internet and just download games from a store or whatever. That these games are just easily accessible instead of the retro game market where everything is so expensive at this point that you can't even afford to get these games anymore unless you pirate them.
Yeah, I've noticed that at the retro gaming stores here in town that they're getting, especially like GameCube games, are getting more expensive.
Yeah, and Joey says they did put a hard drive in it. They just don't publicize it. But
Wink,
yeah,
wink.
that's wink, wink. But this next story is from IGN.com. Streets of Rage composer is making a brand new game for the Sega Genesis. For the first time in nearly 3 decades, video game composer and designer Yuzo Koshiro is working on a new game for the Sega Genesis. Koshiro is best known for contributing music to classic game series like Streets of Rage, Revenge of Shinobi, ActRaiser. That's got some great music in it, even though it's very reminiscent of Star Wars, some of the music in ActRaiser, Ease, and more. Now the developer is working on a brand new shoot 'em up game designed for the original Genesis Mega Drive hardware. He revealed on Twitter, he posted a couple of images of the game that depict a spaceship flying through what appears to be an alien planet. And you can go find him it's at Yuzo Koshiro on Twitter. And he wrote, "It looks like an old shoot 'em up, but is a new game we're developing, harkening back to famous franchises in the 80s. We will release it for MD/Genesis. I'm making the soundtrack and have been back also as a game designer since Beyond Oasis." So I'm kind of excited about that. This is pretty cool.
What I love also about these photos, the game's being played on an old TV.
Yeah, it's an old
That
CRT.
makes yeah, that makes it even better. Yeah, this is really cool. We talk about these stories every now and then about games being made for the old systems themselves, like the Super Nintendo, like the NES, like the Genesis.
Yeah.
This is really cool, and it makes me wish I had an old CRT television
I
to play
do,
something like
but
this on.
I need a new one because the RCA jacks are starting to get a little crunchy,
Mm.
and I don't know who fixes that stuff.
Yeah, I can't think of anywhere around here that would fix those.
And I don't want to fry myself or fry it trying to fix it. I'd rather just, I don't know, deal with it the
Take it
way
to
it
a
is. And
professional.
yeah, I'd rather let somebody who knows what they're doing try to mess with all that.
Yeah, same. But this is really cool though. Very, very cool. Our last story comes to us from GoNintendo.com. Capcom updates placeholder websites for Mega Man 12 through 15. When Mega Man 11 released, Capcom was quick to point out that the next installment in the Mega Man franchise was already in the works. Unfortunately, it's been pretty radio silent since then. Today, those holding out for anything from Capcom may have a tiny sliver of hope as we
Hmm.
inch ever closer to Mega Man's 35th anniversary. Back in 2018, Capcom registered web domains for Mega Man 12 through 15, which nothing has come of those. Uh, while the domains were left untouched since their initial purchase, they have finally been updated this year. Those domains aren't public facing yet, so you can't go to them and see details about Mega Man. That said, with all of them being tweaked in March 2022, it does make you wonder if we'll see at least one of them being utilized for Mega Man's 35th anniversary, which will be December 17th. So just little 12 days away from when
Mm-hmm.
we're recording this, actually. So less than 2 weeks.
I'm kind of surprised they didn't do anything for the 35th anniversary. I mean, Mega Man is their. I mean, you could say a lot of things about Capcom, but I feel like Mega Man is still their flagship franchise. I mean, with everything they've done from Resident Evil to Street Fighter to all those great Capcom games, Mega Man is their flagship mascot.
How cool would it be if they just dropped Mega Man 12? I don't think that'll happen personally, but
No, I would love it. Mega Man 11 still is a fantastic game. If you've never played that, please go get it. I played it on the Switch. It's available everywhere, but I got it on the Switch, and it's a really great experience on there. And I mean, it plays. It's Mega Man. I mean, if you love Mega Man, it's modernized Mega Man is what it is, and I love every second of it. And I will buy a new one every time a new one drops.
Joey says he is so bad at Mega Man 11. I still need to play it.
See, what you gotta do is put it on easy for old people like us.
I'll keep that in mind.
I'm not gonna lie, even on easy, that game is hard. It's Mega Man. It's always gonna be hard.
Well, my experience with Mega Man is very limited, as I've said, but I have played Mega Man X pretty extensively, and it was pretty brutal.
Yeah, and oh man, the graphics in that game are so good. I
Mm-hmm.
just makes me want to go play it. Let's just stop. Let's end the podcast. Good night, everybody. I'm gonna go play some Mega Man 11 right now.
We'll see you guys next week.
But that would be cool if they did drop something out of nowhere. I have a feeling that if they do a Mega Man, I mean they're due for Mega Man 12. It's got to drop sometime soon. Maybe early 2023.
Maybe they'll at least do some kind of announcement.
Yeah, maybe so. That I mean, if they're already updating the websites and
I would think something would be coming.
yeah, they may drop some news on the what was the date for the 17th, which
December
is
17th.
like what 12 days from now.
Yep, that is it's on a Sunday.
Okay, well I
No,
don't know.
there's that's next Saturday. Sorry.
They might drop
A week from
something.
Saturday.
Hopefully, maybe
Yeah, we'll
we'll get
see.
some more Mega Man stuff too, like maybe a Mega Man cartoon. That would be cool.
Did I ever tell you about the Mega Man Sonic crossover?
No.
Uh, Back a few years ago, when the Sonic comic book was still being done by Archie, they started doing a Mega Man comic. So they actually did a crossover where it was Sonic and Mega Man teaming up against Robotnik and Dr. Wily.
That's cool.
It was actually a really cool
I
storyline.
would watch the crap out of that if they made a cartoon out of that.
That should have been like a special or something.
You know what we
I
need?
would have watched that in a heartbeat.
We need a cartoon of the Mega Man that was on Captain N, the Game Master.
Oh
The one,
God.
the one that sounds like a mob boss when he talks. I'm
Uh,
Mega Man.
I was gonna say if Marlon Brando were still alive, he could be the voice.
And I still to
I'm
this
gonna make him
day,
an offer he can't
still
refuse.
to this day, I like watching Captain N. Every time Mega Man comes on, I'm like, what were they thinking? Mega Man, I mean, yeah, they call him man, but he's a boy. He's a robot boy. Why didn't they not give him a little kid's voice? Why was he, first off, why was he green? Number one. Number two, why did he sound like a mob boss? I just, what were they thinking? I don't get it.
That era of video game cartoons was just so weird. You had that. You had the borderline racist Italian puns from the Mario Brothers Super Show. You had Link being a freaking pervert and molester.
And
You
why
had
were
Zelda looking like
Mario
she wasn't wearing any
and
pants.
why were Mario and Luigi so obsessed with pasta? I mean, pasta was never a thing in the games. Where did that come from?
I don't know. Like, I don't get me wrong. I love pasta as much as the next person, but I'm like, you guys have a problem.
Yeah, you can't eat it every meal. You're gonna be you're asking for for some heart problems if you're eating it for every meal.
Yeah, your stomach's going to explode.
But it is. Let's leave that behind because we could go. I could literally do an entire episode on everything that's wrong with Captain N, the Game Master. But we'll leave that discussion for
That
later.
that'd be a fun like episode on its own, like just talking about that era of video game cartoons.
We should do
Because
that.
I could go on for an hour about the Zelda cartoon and everything that's wrong with it.
Joey said do a whole episode on pasta. I could. I love me some pasta.
I do too. I
But,
do too.
but
We should do that.
let's go ahead and move into this month in video game history. Whoa, why is that the wrong music? It's labeled wrong. Something happened with my soundboard. That was really weird. I played the
Your
thing that said
soundboard's
video
trolling
game
you.
history, and it's playing something else entirely. On December of 1982, Atari releases E.T. the Extraterrestrial, arguably the best video game ever
Oh,
made.
there's no arguable about it.
Written in 5.5 weeks, is one of the games that sparks the video game crash of '83. And man, I would love to get Howard Scott Warshaw on the show to talk about that. I'm going to keep hounding him until he comes on the show or he blocks me, one of the two.
Well, if he blocks you, then I'll just take over and
Yeah.
just keep bombarding
Just
him.
keep going. Because he had a book out not too long ago. I got to get that book and read it.
Yeah, same. Let's see. December 27th of 1982, Starcade, a video game television game show, debuts on TBS in the United States.
Wasn't Starcade also a WCW
Yep,
thing?
it was an old NWA show back in
Yeah.
the early 80s that I believe predates WrestleMania. I'm sure Joey will correct me if I'm wrong on that, but
I remember
I
me and
wanna
my
say-
cousin, we used to watch NWA back in the mid to late 80s. And I remember we watched Starcade one weekend. I think it was pay-per-view, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah, you had like Ric Flair and Dusty
Yeah.
Rhodes from that
Sting.
era. So,
Yeah, Sting was on there.
yep, back when he had the multicolored face paint before he became the Crow.
Yeah, he wore like the shiny like colored pants, like green pants, and he had the different kind of makeup on, and he had blonde hair, like spiky
Yeah, he had the blonde
hair.
flat top.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Sting was when I first started watching wrestling, he was my first favorite wrestler.
Wow.
I love Sting. He was great.
God, he's been around forever.
He's still wrestling.
I know.
He's in his 60s.
He's got to be like 80 at this point.
I think he's in his early 60s and he's still going.
Yeah, Joey says it predated WrestleMania by 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember reading about that a while back, but yeah, those shows, I grew up on the Attitude Era, but now that's the older stuff is more widely available. I've gone back. That early to mid 80s stuff is great.
Yeah, I wish I could find VHS tapes of all that old 80s era stuff because I used to watch Mid-South Wrestling too, which I think was called UWF, and it was out of Memphis, and they had my favorite wrestler from there was a guy called the Great Kabuki, and he was kind of scary looking, and he would blow like powder in people's faces. And Ted DiBiase came from there. Junkyard
Mm-hmm.
Dog came from there. And I used to go, my uncle used to take me when I was a little kid. They used to come down to the Coast Coliseum all the time when I was really little. I'm talking like 1983, 84. I was probably 6 or 7 years old, and he would take me to see wrestling. And that's when I first saw like Hacksaw Jim Duggan and all those guys, the Junkyard Dog, all those dudes.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's cool to see like where all of them came from, and then you're seeing what they became, later on when the WWF really took off in the late '80s.
Joey says, I just met Sting for the first time on Saturday night at an event here in New Jersey, and then coincidentally, he was on my wife's plane flight Sunday morning to Texas. That's awesome.
Wow,
That's cool.
that's really cool. I got my fingers crossed that one day he'll be at Pensacon
Yeah, I'm sure he will. Yeah, that
because
seems like
he does conventions. I
yeah.
know that.
Rampage in the chat room, Rampage.
Rampage.
But yeah, here we go. Is it my turn?
It is.
December of 1984, Atari Games releases Marble Madness, their first game written in the C programming language and to use a 68,000 family microprocessor. I like Marble Madness a lot. Even the Nintendo version is really good.
Didn't you review Marble
I
Madness
did.
a while back on this show?
Thing about that game is that it's so short. If you're any kind of decent at that game, you can finish it in like 10 minutes.
Yeah, I still have yet to play it, but I do remember you talking about it.
It's got some of the best music ever, too.
Oh, Joey says, she said, and I quote, if you don't already know who he is, he just looked like an old guy with bad dyed hair and a soul patch.
Sounds like
Oh,
me.
man. That'll probably be me in like 30 years.
Yeah.
Let's see. December 16th of 1997, a scene from the Pokemon anime based upon the highly successful games causes 685 Japanese children to have seizures.
Whoa.
Nintendo makes a statement proclaiming the safety of the Pokemon games from fear that the games would cause a similar effect. The episode to be permanently removed from circulation, and the featured Pokemon in the episode, named Porygon, has not made an appearance in the Pokemon anime since.
Wow.
And that is the one and only time that episode ever aired on television at all.
Can you even see it online anywhere?
I'm sure someone's posted it on YouTube. I haven't searched for it, but there were actually a few episodes of the Pokemon anime that were banned in the States for various reasons.
Wow.
Like I remember there was one, because in Japan they're a lot more lax on stuff like that than they are here. There was one episode where they traveled to the Safari Zone, and I think it was the warden or someone pointed a gun like right at Ash's head and also shot it at Team Rocket, the villains of the show. So needless to say, that one was not played in the United States.
Yeah.
There's been others for racial stereotypes. So there's been like 6 to 8 episodes of the anime that were never shown in the US.
Crazy. I would like to actually see that one that caused all the seizures.
I would too. And it's kind of crazy that that Pokemon hasn't made an appearance in the show since.
And 685 kids, that's a lot of kids.
Yeah. I mean, and I know what Pokemon they're talking about. It's basically, it was in the show or in the games, it was the first digitally created Pokemon. So it basically looks like a bunch of polygons, but it looks like an N64 character.
It doesn't say here in the thing, Joey. He's asking for what season episode number it is, but you'll have to, I guess you could Google it and find it.
Oh, he says it's on YouTube.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to do that when we leave here tonight.
Yeah, I want to watch it too.
December of 1988, Take-Two Interactive forms the Rockstar Games publishing label. I didn't know they went all the way back to 98.
And for those who may not know about Rockstar, they created the Grand Theft Auto games,
I guess
Red Dead Redemption,
Grand
LA
Theft
Noire.
Auto 1 was, what, like 98, 99, somewhere around there?
Something like that, yeah.
Man, I almost bought PlayStation 2 Grand Theft Auto 3 the other day, but it was so scratched to hell and back that I didn't get it.
Yeah, I don't blame you on
I
that.
really like that one. San Andreas is still one of my favorites.
Yeah, Vice City will probably always be my favorite Grand Theft Auto game.
Mm,
Red Dead is great. LA Noire is really good. So Rockstar's made some really good
yeah,
games.
Red Dead Redemption's still one of the greatest games of this century.
Oh, 100%. And finally, December of 2001, Panasonic releases the GameCube based Q multimedia console, which I remember reading about on IGN back in the day.
What
This was
is
a GameCube
this?
that had a DVD player in it.
Oh yeah, they didn't make very many of these. If you actually come across one of these in the wild, oh, you better snatch it up with a quickness.
I I wonder how much these go for.
I don't even know. It's got to be astronomical.
Let's see, GameCube Q based console. Yeah, I remember reading about this. They never released them outside of Japan, I don't think,
Yeah, that's
because they
why
didn't sell well.
it's
You can
crazy.
get one for $1,700 on eBay.
Woo! Yeah, I think I'll pass on getting one
Uh,
off eBay.
let's see. You can also get one. It comes with a remote, a memory card, and a controller for $936.
Wow.
So if you're looking for that slight discount, you can get that one.
Yeah,
That's not surprising. I knew it would be pricey.
I'd have to look it up for the original GTA. I'm not sure if they were officially Rockstar's first release, but I would imagine so. They would have
If
to be.
not the first, it has to be one of the first.
Yeah. But that brings us to the end of this month of video game history. Now we're ready to go into some shout outs.
As always, we'd like to shout out our awesome patrons over at patreon.com/nerdcaveretro. We want to shout out John West, Daniel Salmon, Tyler Watson, Axblade07, Armez Jackson, Carlos Longoria, aka Rampage,
Rampage!
Staff Sergeant Sketch, Gus and Penny, Matthew Salmon, Joey Image, and Donna Diamond. Thank you all so much
Mama
for your
Diamond.
continued contribution. Yes, absolutely. Did want to throw out there, it is the first of the month, so we all know what Patreon likes to do at the first of the month. So we did lose a couple of patrons. So just, I know it can be tough. I have to do it at the beginning of every month. Just always be sure to, check to make sure that your subscription's still valid. I know it's a hassle, but it is what it is, unfortunately,
That's
with Patreon.
Patreon
So,
life, is what it
yep,
is. If
that
you're
is
gonna,
Patreon life. So,
yeah.
and plus, we know the holidays are coming up. People are spending a lot of money. But if you want us to keep doing the fun commentary tracks like National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation,
Mm-hmm.
Batman the Animated Series, Gargoyles, so many countless other ones we've done, you got to get us back up to that $50 level.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, for new patrons, be sure to send us your social media info, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, so we can give you a proper shout out. And if you want to be a part of our awesome Patreon community, again, just head over to patreon.com/nerdcaveretro.
Hey, and our Patreon would be a good Christmas present too if you got a retro gamer in your life and they listen to this show too and you want to get them a present, just go get them a subscription to our Patreon and they get all the extra little episodes we do. And whenever some big gaming news comes out, we do the news dump. Me and Wally do, but there hasn't been any big news in a while. It's that slow time of the year for game news, but we'll be back with
To
the
steal
news
a
dump.
quote from Christmas Vacation, we're the gift that keeps on giving all year.
Clark, that's the gift that keeps on giving all year long. That it is, Eddie. That it is. But tonight, Derek is going to be talking about...
Sounds like a classic MIDI track.
Very pleasant, the music for this game.
Yeah, the music to this game is very nice to listen to as you explore the various areas of this game. So this is a game that I've been wanting to actually review for a while. been playing it off and on for really like the last 6 months or so, and decided, I haven't reviewed what a classic like Mario type platformer in a while. So that's kind of what I've been in the mood to play. So for this week, I will be reviewing Wario Land 3, which is a 2000 video game released for the Game Boy Color, which is, of course, the sequel to Wario Land 1 and 2, which was a spin-off of Super Mario Land from back in the early 90s, starring everyone's favorite anti-hero arch rival Wario, which I remember when the first Wario Land game came out, seeing the commercials for it and being pretty excited about it because Wario was a popular character when Mario Land 2 came out and he was the antagonist of that. So it was cool to play a Mario game but have a little bit of a different feel, a little bit of different stakes to it.
I was looking at some video of gameplay of this game, and it reminds me of something, but I can't quite place what game it reminds me of.
It's got pretty good graphics for
Really
a Game
good.
Boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that this, Game Boy Color was in full swing at this point. And to use a movie analogy, it was like The Wizard of Oz, where you were literally stepping from black and white into color. I remember when the Game Boy Color first came out and just my mind being blown, finally getting to play a handheld in full color. So I was really excited for this. Wario Land 2 was really good as well. There's a sequel to this. There's a total of 4 Wario Land games, but this is by far my favorite of the 4 for several different reasons. One is the music, which you guys heard the intro opening track. There's something really catchy and pleasant about the music. It really captures the mood of wherever you are in the game. And what's cool is there's a day and night mode, because there are certain objectives that you have to do depending on what kind of day it or what time of day it is. And there are also different abilities that you get. And the cool thing is, so Wario can't die, which is advantageous for those of you who die a lot in games like I do. But your abilities change depending on what happens to you throughout the game. So, for example, if it's nighttime and you're going through, so there, one of the first levels in the game is you're going through this town and you happen upon a zombie. Well, if it attacks you, you become a zombie. The cool thing is it makes you invulnerable. If something touches you, it dies instantly. The bad thing is you can't really move that well. You can barely jump and you fall through thin floor. So if you're on a platform, you just fall right through it. So then you have to turn back into normal Wario and then just avoid the zombies. Sometimes you have to get to certain objectives. If you get smashed by a hammer, you turn into like almost like a slinky or a giant spring where you can jump up and down really high.
And this is the same game mechanics as the other ones, right?
This mechanic was introduced in Wario Land 2.
Okay,
Wario
cool.
Land 1 was more like a typical Mario game where you had different power-ups. You had different hats that you wore. But you could still die and you had like lives and everything. But this concept was introduced in the sequel,
Because I think
which
you
I
talked
like
about
because
this for 2, because I'm having some severe deja vu right now.
yeah, and I like that though because it differentiates it from a traditional Mario game. It has similar mechanics in that it's a platformer, but with the abilities you get, it makes it a little bit different, which I think is really cool. So the storyline of this game is Wario, as everyone knows, he likes treasure hunting. He's very greedy. He loves money. His plane crashes and he happens upon this cave that has this like gold music box. So him thinking it's a piece of treasure, he picks it up, but he gets sucked into the music box. So when he gets sucked into it, he finds this hidden figure who's had he's had his power stolen from him, and he says, well, if you can find me these 5 music boxes and restore my power, you can keep whatever treasure you find, and I'll also release you, from this prison or whatever. So you go through these different areas and find different treasures that help you advance throughout the game. And each level, so there are 4 different sections of the music box. There's north, south, east, and west, and each have 7 to 8 levels in them. Each level has 4 different treasure chests that you have to find, and they're all color coded. There's gray, red, blue, and green. Throughout the levels, you have to find the different keys to open said treasure chest. So you have to find the gray key to open the gray chest. But chances are, when you find, say, the first one, it'll give you a treasure or an ability that you can then go to the next level, use that to find different treasure, and so on and so forth. And then you can eventually backtrack once you get all of your abilities, because when you start out the game, Wario just has his basic charge attack, and that's really about it. But you get different abilities throughout the game. Like, you get a stronger charge attack, you can jump higher, you can pick up enemies, throw them. And it's really cool because you get to go back and explore areas that you weren't able to get to before.
Mm-hmm.
And the levels are pretty decent size too for a Game Boy game. So I feel like size wise and graphic wise, it really pushes the limits of what the Game Boy could do.
So that's why this is categorized as a Metroidvania.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of backtracking.
There is a lot of backtracking, but it's not in the annoying kind of way.
Yeah, but it makes the game feel bigger than what it actually is, though. When you have that type of gameplay.
Yeah, and each section of the map has a fairly decent amount of levels, but because you get to go back and you don't have to find every piece of treasure to complete the game, you just have to find the 5 music boxes. But once you beat the final boss, you can restart the game and you can go back and collect whatever treasure that you didn't get. But I really like the Wario Land games, and I say this every time I review a Game Boy game, but if this had been for like the Super Nintendo, it would have done much better, I think, than it actually did. But at the same time, I like that Game Boy has its own like type of franchise. And I would classify Wario Land under that category.
Have they ever done like not a remaster, but a repackaging of these Wario games for any system?
Um, you can download, well, when you could still download games for the 3DS, they have all 4 on there, because that's where I've got the first 3. I didn't get the 4th one, unfortunately, so I'll probably have to find it for the Game Boy Advance once I eventually do review that one. But yeah, they were available, pretty wide on the handheld virtual console.
See, because this seems like it would be perfect if Switch Online if they ever do Game Boy Online, where you can play original Game Boy games, Game Boy Color games. Because there seems to be a lot of games from this era, especially the Game Boy Color, that could do with a little bit of a little bit of love to repackage them and have people be able to play them, because there's a lot of games that have been lost to time from this era.
I wish they would add Game Boy games to the Switch Online store. If they did that, the Wario Land games would be some of the first I would add. Like Mario Land, Wario Land, Link's Awakening would be another one. Metroid 2, another great Game Boy game. The Donkey Kong Land Game Boy games were really fun too. If you like Donkey Kong Country, it has the same type of feel as those. Donkey Kong 94 was really good, an extension of the original arcade game. Game Boy had a lot of good games for it. It just didn't get the same kind of love.
Yeah, and
Unfortunately.
Nintendo's just leaving money on the table by not re-releasing this stuff in a way that, I mean, the Nintendo Switch is the perfect opportunity to bring stuff like this back. It's a handheld system. It's a modern handheld system. It's more than capable of playing every single one of these games, even if it's emulated, like they do for all the online stuff. Yeah, Nintendo and Super Nintendo. Why can't they do all the Game Boy stuff too? it's mind bending that they don't respect their past more like they should.
And you would think if any company would, it would be Nintendo, because people of our generation, they associate the word Nintendo with video games.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
uh, we've talked about that quite a bit. So, a couple of other cool things that I like about this game specifically, it has really cool boss fights. They're few and far between, but it also they also take advantage of Wario's ability to adapt to his environment depending on what happens to him. So, for example, when you're in this world where you're in like a metropolis type of city, you and you're going to think I'm kidding when I say this, but it's going to sound ridiculous, but you have a soccer match against a giant rabbit. And the
Okay,
way that you beat him is that you have to stomp on him, transforming him into a ball, and you have to kick it into the goal.
okay.
Likewise, he can do that to you. And the first person to score 3 goals wins, and then you get, that treasure chest. But there's some really cool boss fights too. Like there's a cool underwater one that you do where you fight this giant spiked fish. I can't think of that specific type of fish off the top of my head, but the one with spikes all over it. You fight one of those, but there's only like I think 5 or 6, if that, boss fight, not including the final one, but there's not too many. I wish there would have been a few more of those, because that was among my favorite aspect of the game, was the creativity with the boss
Mm-hmm.
fights. But it doesn't take away from the overall experience of it. But it's a really good platformer. And if anybody is a fan of the Mario games, especially from the 90s and 2000s, and you haven't played any of the Wario Land games, do yourself a favor and do it, because you will fall in love with it. And I've loved going back and playing 1, 2, and 3. Eventually, I'll get around to 4, but I've really, really liked going back and playing these games.
Well, I mean, from what I saw, I didn't get to see too much, but from what I saw on the gameplay, looked pretty cool. It looked really fun. Like I said, it looked like something. It reminded me of something, but I can't quite put my finger on what the gameplay reminded me of. But I might have to go look for some ROMs maybe and play some ROMs of the Wario Land games.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because there's no other way to get this stuff without
Uh,
finding them at a
if
retro game store somewhere.
if you don't want us to download the ROMs, make them available to
Yeah,
to purchase for a small fee.
yeah. Because that's how it works, Nintendo. You give us the product and we will pay for it.
Yeah,
Give us a way to
exactly.
purchase it. We'll buy it. I will.
And I will also await your text message later on in the week. Like, that's what it reminded me of.
Yeah, probably. But
But
that's cool.
yeah, as far as the overall reception of the game, it was reviewed very well. It has
Hmm.
an aggregate score of 90% on game rankings based on 15 reviews, making it the highest rated game in the Wario series. It was a runner up for GameSpot's annual Best Game Boy Color Game and Best Platform Game Awards, losing to Dragon Warrior 1 and 2 and Banjo Tooie, respectively.
And
Games.
it was the 10th
Go ahead.
best selling Game Boy Color game too in Japan with 255,536 copies sold.
And get this, GameSpot rated it a 9.8 out of 10
Whoa.
and stated, as far as platformers go, Wario Land 3 is a game that fires on all cylinders. IGN gave it an outstanding rating of 9 out of 10. Nintendo Power listed it as the 9th best Game Boy/Game Boy Color video game, describing it as the pinnacle of Wario's early action platform adventure games.
Every time
And
I
Nintendo,
see a Nintendo game being rated highly by Nintendo Power, reminds me of that Barack Obama meme where somebody photoshopped him giving himself the Medal of Honor.
yeah, which is weird because there are some reviews where they rate it lower than say like an IGN or an Electronic Gaming Monthly would. Like EGM would give a game like a 9.5, and then Nintendo Power's like, oh, you know what? We'll give it a 7.
Yeah.
Like, it's your own game. What are you
I guess
doing?
they don't want to play favorites.
I know, but there's a fine line. Like, you can give it like an 8 or an 8.5.
Mm.
You give it a 7, you're like, okay, now you're trying too hard to not play favorites,
Joey in
which
the
is
chat
worse than
room.
playing favorites.
Joey in the chat room says, so Wario Land 3 fires on more cylinders than J Funktastic's car. I kid.
Ouch.
Ouch,
Wow.
man.
Wow.
Wow.
No.
Yeah, my car
Man,
ruined Christmas.
that sucks. I feel so bad for
Yeah,
you
I got to
about
pay
that.
for the
That's
car.
rough.
So head over to patreon.com/nerdcaveretro and subscribe to the show and help me pay for my stupid car. My new, what did I have replaced? My AC and my
You said the
radiator.
radiator
Yeah.
was shot, right?
Yeah, I got the AC replaced like 2 months ago, and then the radiator shot. So almost $3,000 worth of car work in the last 2 months. Kind of hurts.
Yeah, that's awful.
So what do
That's
you
absolutely
give
awful.
this game? Back to Wario 3. What is your rating for the game?
I'd give it a solid 9.
Not
It's
bad.
really, really good. It's, like I said, my favorite of the Wario Land games. I think it's peak Mario platforming. It's not as good, obviously, as like a Super Mario World or a Mario Brothers 3. I think it's the best handheld Mario platformer.
Wow.
I will say that.
That's
It's
high
it's it's
praise.
it's really good. I'm very curious to see how 4 is because I don't remember much of it. I had very distinct memories of the first 3, but the fourth one not so much.
Hmm.
But I'll get to that at some other point in time.
All right. Well, brings us to the end of this episode. Next week, I hopefully will be done with Code Veronica by next week. If not, I may have to push it back to my next review. Depends on whether or not I can get it. I can get it done before next Monday. But I should be able to. I don't see why I shouldn't. But if not, I'll do something else. I'm not sure. I may do another Nintendo game next week if I can't get Code Veronica done. But that
Okay.
brings us to the end of the episode. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us. And is there anything else you wanted to throw out there before we leave this evening?
Just follow me at D Diamond Film on social media. Hopefully, either next week or the week after, I will be announcing the details for the premiere of the feature.
Awesome! I can't wait for it to come out. I'm always excited when we have stuff like that come out. It's always
Yeah,
that crackle of excitement before the world gets to see that kind of stuff.
there's a couple of logistical things to figure out, but I'll say the date and the venue have been confirmed.
All right.
There's still a couple more things to figure out, but once that's done, I will let everyone know.
We'll have you on the Open Micers podcast before all that
Yep.
happens. And but speaking of
Yep.
Open Micers, go to @OpenMicers on Twitter and Instagram. We've been doing a lot of host episodes lately because it's that time of the year. It's hard to get guests, so all of our guests are coming back up at the beginning of the year. I think we have another guest coming up next week, but I'm not sure. But starting a new year, everybody's ready to come on the show and be a guest. But we've been doing a lot of hostful episodes lately. And last week was pretty funny. Jacob has to deal with a lot of. He works at the gas station now, so he has to deal with all kinds of gas station people, and his stories are quite hilarious. So go check us out at Open Micers, Twitter and Instagram. And he's a better man than me. There's no way I could ever work at a gas station.
Not a shot.
I mean, I love my job now because I don't have to deal with the public. I don't have to see anybody all day. It's just I'm in the shop making t-shirts.
And I just sit at a computer all day, so
Yeah. So I'll take my job over having to work at a gas station any day of the week.
yeah.
But that brings us to the end of the episode. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us. And let me pull up my notes here. as we walk out the door. If you would like to email us at nerdcaveretro@gmail.com. We are at nerdcaveretro.com, which now takes you straight to our link tree, which takes you to our Facebook, our Instagram, our Twitter, and of course our merch shop, which you can go to at ncrmerch.com. Get some shirts for Christmas. We got a bunch of cool nerd shirts over there. Go check out. And not just shirts, but bags and hats. We got stickers and magnets, coffee mugs, everything you need. Speaking of coffee mugs, head over to brezcoffeeco.com and use our code NCR for 10% off your purchase. They got all kind of new holiday flavors over there at brezcoffeeco.com. And go to patreon.com/nerdcaveretro. And if you can't do that, can't give us $1 a month, I understand. Times are tough. Leave us a review wherever fine podcasts are given away for free. Sturt, please tell them what it's all about.
May the way of the hero lead to the Triforce.
Yes.
Hey, paisanos, it's the Super Mario Brothers Super Show!
And that's an episode.
That soundbite cracks me up
I
every
love
time.
it.
Hey, paisanos.
Man, I got to bump up the volume on that, though. It's very quiet. I'm going to have to put it in GarageBand or something and jack it up.
You know what I just realized we didn't talk about? The new Mario trailer.
Oh, why? Why do we forget these things?
I just remembered it. Like, you playing that soundbite reminded me. I'm like, shit, I was going to put it in the Google Doc, but I forgot to do it.
That's fine.
We'll save it for next week.
Yeah, we'll talk about it next week. I'm still not that sold on Chris Pratt as Mario.
Which sucks because, like, I like everything else about it.
I do too. It looks like it's going to be great, but man, voice just, I don't know.
I don't know about Charlie Day as Luigi either.
I like him a little bit more than I'm digging the Chris Pratt voice.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I want to hear Seth Rogen's Donkey Kong. I'm very curious about it. The beginning of that trailer was hilarious. How he's just like,
yeah. I've watched that trailer about 3 or 4 times now, and I'm trying to like the voice. I'm really trying, but I'm not sold until I'm actually watching the movie.
Yeah, I'm going to try to go in like I did with the Sonic movie. I'm going to try to go in with an open mind. But I think what is going to end up happening is everything else about the movie is going to be good except for that. And it just sucks because he's fucking Mario.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, and Joey says the new trailer is better than the first. I kind of like the first trailer. I think the first trailer was specifically made to not show his voice very much.
Yeah.
Because
I like both of them.
Yeah, I like the first one because it should.
The Mario Kart tease at the end of the second one was pretty awesome.
Yeah, of course.
Going down Rainbow Road.
Rainbow Road in there. Which, speaking of Mario Kart, there's a really good gaming historian episode that just dropped on YouTube the other day, and it's the history of Mario Kart, and it is excellent. So if you haven't seen it, I need to watch it. Please go watch that. It's so good.
I love his videos, so I'll need to watch that one.
I tagged him, and he responded to me on Twitter the other day.
I saw that.
I was like, why Netflix hasn't just backed up a Brinks truck full of money to him to do documentaries for Netflix is just beyond me. The dude he's the Ken Burns of video game documentarians.
No, he should be well compensated for that because he's very good.
All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and end the stream now. Thank you guys for watching, and we will see all of you next week.